So this mic is live. Good morning, everyone. I don't need to, so I'm going to use it. I'm going to use this as a, if I can just have some paper in front of me.
We're just going to fix that sound.
We're going to fix this. How's that? Sounds better. Well, good morning, and thank you for having me, and thanks to the Eastside Transportation Partnership for really taking leadership and bringing this issue to the entire region. And thank you, Steve, for the kind introduction. At Sound Transit, we are optimistic about the long-term potential for automated vehicles, and we really appreciate the opportunity to discuss a little bit today how we can integrate that innovation with all that we're trying to do with, as Steve talked about, the expanded high-capacity transit network that the voters just adopted. I would say that we're trying to be nimble as an agency, as we all need to be with in emerging technology, to be able to pivot as we expand our system over the next 25 years to accommodate whatever the new technologies are going to be, however they're going to work. And it is also critically important that we do that because automated vehicles can help solve one of the most vexing challenges that has burdened all transit systems across the nation through time, and that is how to connect people from their final point of destination, either their workplace or their home, or importantly, other destinations that we don't think of as commonly with the high-capacity transit network. So, for example, there is potential here. One example that was put to me is right here in Bellevue. Parking at the South Bellevue station is often full very early in the morning. But what if you could use your smartphone here in Bellevue to call an automated vehicle to pick you up at your house? There's an opportunity to have a very efficient ride with some of your neighbors because they'll have algorithms that will deploy that vehicle, who will know where people are originating, know where they are going. And the vehicle then drops you off at a station, one of our rail stations where we're going to be providing rail service every 6 minutes to, by the end of our Sound Transit 3 capital plan, a 116-mile network that will run throughout the entire region. Frankly, each light rail and commuter rail extension represents more areas where trains and automated vehicles can work together to solve what's commonly referred to as that last mile problem. How to get someone from that station stop to their job, or from that station stop to their home. As Steve pointed out, it's now been about a month since Sound Transit 3, or as it was known, Proposition 1, was adopted by the voters. It will really, we view it as a statement by the voters of the region to solve the congestion problem by taking themselves entirely out of it, by giving them the opportunity to board a 116-mile light rail network that will face no congestion at all, very frequent service. We will also be expanding our Sounder commuter rail system as a result of the voters' action, with more frequent Sounder commuter trains. Sounder service, as many people don't know, there's been so much attention to light rail and our expansion recently, both to Capitol Hill and Husky Stadium and Angle Lake. Sort of under the radar has been the fact that Sounder service, especially in the South, has expanded some 15% in a single year, and that has been basically with no expansion of service. It really has to do with how dreadful I-5 coming south to north has been in the morning and in the evenings going south. The voters also voted to expand bus rapid transit, real bus rapid transit, which we don't necessarily mean sort of the express bus services that we have, or some of the mixed traffic bus services that we have in the form of rapid ride or Swift service up in Snohomish County. So this, I was asked a little bit to talk about what the Sound Transit 3 plan encompasses. I'm going to go through that relatively quickly because I'd like to kind of get to some of what I think are some of the more interesting issues that I'd encourage you to wrestle with in your sessions later today. As As you may or may not know, the Sound Transit District encompasses more than 50 cities, more than 40% of the state's population. As I pointed out, as a result of the voters' action last month, we are now on a capital plan for the next 25 years that will not only expand commuter rail service, but will build out the light rail system to a true regional network, totaling 116 miles. Construction is underway right now. In fact, you can walk just about a block and a half from here and see some of it. On a 14-mile, 10-station East Link light rail extension between Seattle, Mercer Island, Bellevue, and Overlake. As a result of the voters' action last month, we will now extend that all the way to downtown Redmond. By 2021, people will be able to ride congestion-free light rail to Roosevelt and Northgate. 2 years later, that will be extended to Shoreline, Montlake Terrace, and Linwood. And now, as a result of the voters' actions, it will be continued beyond Linwood, all the way up to Ashway, Mariner, to Painfield, and to Everett. By early next year, we are set to finalize the route for extending light rail from its current southern terminus in Angle Lake to SeaTac, all the way to Federal Way, again, as a result of the voters' action last month. And that will be followed on with light rail extensions to Tacoma, West Seattle, Ballard, South Kirkland, and Issaquah. Probably heard us say, in all of the heat and light of the campaign, it was pointed out that the light rail network, once fully built out, will connect at least well more than 80% of the residential areas to well more than 90% of the region's jobs. But that last mile challenge remains. Now let's talk a little bit about that. We are working with multiple transportation research partners, public and private, to plan for flexible integration of high-capacity transit and emerging mobility options, including automated vehicles. As Sound Transit builds out the light rail network, we are refining our facility design guidelines to reflect evolving mobility options and rider needs. So let me talk about that in a little bit more granular fashion. We have become very accustomed to building what we call bus-rail intercepts. How do we have the bus network feed the rail network? But increasingly, we need to be mindful of the fact that it's not just, people are not just accessing the station either through parking or buses or taxis or kiss and ride lots that we build out. The reality is that there may be other technologies that will be connecting them to the network, and we've been working with our folks as we design stations going forward to, as I say, remain nimble and have the flexibility to accommodate a variety of different technologies, which already, for our stations, includes the expanded use of Uber and Lyft and similar providers. I couldn't help but note recently, it was pointed out that there's a very, for those of you who may have followed the debate over our ballot measure, there's been a rich debate with Sound Transit really forever over the amount of parking you build. There are some camps that are of the view that we should really be encouraging passengers to connect, because parking is so expensive to build that we should be encouraging passengers to connect by bus. The other side about it is a bus-rail connection is not reality for a great many of our passengers. And that's not just true because of the extent of the bus service that's available. That also has to do with the fact that while we tend to think in people in terms of going from home to work and work to home, for a great many of our passengers, on Tuesday, they have pickup from the soccer game. On Thursdays, they go shopping after work. On Fridays, they might have a meeting at their church before work. And there needs to be a system that can accommodate the flexible lifestyles that people are leading. That, here again, I think, is an opportunity where the potential for automated vehicles and expanded automotive connections to transit without necessarily having to build parking is an answer. There has been a community recently in New Jersey, I don't remember the name, I think it was in Berkeley County, made a decision. They were faced with the need to build expanded parking for their New Jersey transit stop. And what they've done, at least as an interim, is they've priced out what the cost of that parking will be over time and decided that at least as an interim step, they would prefer to just subsidize Uber and Lyft trips for their residents to get to the New Jersey Transit rail stop. Interesting idea. To think about. It's sort of a first step to looking at alternatives for that last mile connection. And these are the kinds of things that we want to continue to look at and stay nimble on. Now that said, we are, as I said, working with a number of partners. We are currently participating in the Shared Mobility Hub Development Group convened by the City of Seattle to determine policy and infrastructure and services needed to re-envision transit facilities for smart, flexible, multimodal hubs in the future. That said, I think we all need to be realistic about some of the challenges as well as the benefits that really come with automated vehicles. As Steve pointed out before I came here, I did serve as Undersecretary of Transportation up to about 11 months ago. I think it's 11 months ago tomorrow. Before I flew out here, landed at SeaTac, jumped on the light rail and went right to work as the new CEO of Snow Transit. And I did participate in quite a large number of meetings with the different local administrations and DOT about where we needed to go as a nation with automated vehicles. That included the Federal Highway Administration, the National Highway Safety Administration, the Federal Transit Administration, other entities that really needed to focus on the safety aspects, the mobility aspects, the economic development opportunities. There's a lot still to be worked out, as Steve pointed out. Clearly, and I would also encourage everyone here as you go through this to remember this. A lot of people are thinking about the mobility benefits. I think undeniably the earliest and best and most important benefit that is to be obtained from automated vehicles is safety. The population is aging. Little true facts. I have an 86-year-old mother. She was just out here for Thanksgiving. It keeps me up at night, but she does still drive from time to time. And there are opportunities to just maintain separation among vehicles. You need to remember, we still have very high fatalities, an unacceptable level of fatalities, almost 10,000 a year as a result of automobile crashes. Close to 40% of them as a result of impaired driving. That is still, for all the progress that has been made, that is still a very enduring problem that needs to be addressed. Everyone agrees that one fatality is one too many. And we still have a way to go to just bring down the trajectory. Automated vehicles have a way of overcoming the human element as it relates to safety that may have the greatest opportunity in the nearest period of time. And we should remember that. I also want, I think importantly, it's not going to be surprising that this issue comes from the transit guy. So in public transit, equity issues loom large. We are a grantee of the Federal Transit Administration, as is King County Metro Community Transit. We have a special obligation to look out for the needs of the transit dependent. Indeed, the whole federal role in public transit, sometimes forgotten, doesn't arise out of the Commerce Clause of the Constitution. It actually arrives out of the Public Welfare Clause. The whole role of what was then known as the Urban Mass Transit Administration actually came out of the Lyndon Johnson Great Society program, not out of a interstate commerce mobility program. So let's talk a little bit about equity and automated vehicles, because in this region, I think as all of you know, the equity issues get raised very quickly. Issues of fairness, issues of income distribution, issue of what are the benefits and who's getting them. And there really are some important equity issues that if we really want to advance automated vehicles in this region, we should think about going in and think about the answers we're going to have. Because if we don't, we're just going to have some very loud and heated debates that can distract us or distract our region from deploying the technology as quickly and efficiently as possible while other regions are moving ahead. So let me just discuss a couple of those. There's been talk, sorry about that microphone, but there's been talk really for decades about the opportunity for platooning, as it was then called. It probably has a more artful phrase now. But platooning is the idea of how do you get the maximum throughput of automated vehicles by crunching the separation between them, if you will, compressing them, and sending vehicles, if you will, as fleets very close together through the highway network. From a mobility perspective, that may be where automated vehicles may, and I emphasize may, hold some opportunity, again, just from the mobility perspective. How do you get more throughput on the highway system that we've already built? But then the issue comes, these are going to be benefits that are going to really have to be exclusively used by those that have the automated vehicle technology in their car. I'm going to use an example. It's going to sound a little distant, but stay with me for a second and I'll explain it. Within aviation, there's similarly promising technologies for the next generation of air traffic control. One of them is called Automated Dependent Surveillance -B. That's because -A didn't work out all that well. But basically, ADS-B is really about equipping every aircraft in the airspace with situational awareness, aircraft to aircraft, where everyone else is, again for separation. It provides the opportunity to, if you will, reduce the separation between aircraft, get greater throughput through the airspace, reduce fuel consumption, and a whole bunch of other benefits. Problem is this: it only works in the airspace if every aircraft in that airspace is so equipped. And if there's even just but one general aviation aircraft that's flying through the airspace that is not so equipped, all the benefits fall apart because you have to take all the precautions to avoid a collision with that aircraft. Now, superimpose this on automated vehicles and platooning. And really, in order to make it work, every vehicle that is in that, if you will, that platoon needs to be so equipped. And then the question is, who's paying for that? And who's getting access to which lanes for having that technology? So, there is exciting, we've got real vehicles here that are really equipped, and they are, as was pointed out, being tested as test beds in a variety of venues. But when does this technology actually become common and affordable? And that's something that we really need to look at with our eyes wide open. Who is buying everyone one of these so the entire fleet is so equipped? Right now, the length of time that people hold on to their car is, I believe, longer than it's ever been. I think we're up to 11 and a half years on average. To give you a flavor, the mean value of a car, we obviously got into this in the debates over the MVET increased tax as a result of the sound transit measure. I believe it's around $5,500. There's a great many cars on the road that are worth a great deal more than that, and a great many cars on the road that are worth less. But the point is, if people are holding on to their vehicles on average 11 and a half years, how long will it take us to actually turn over the entire fleet of America's vehicles? Quite a long time. It's one of the reasons why a recent observation was made by a think tank up in Victoria that did a piece on automated vehicles that actually pointed out that their estimate of when automated vehicles actually are in common use will not be until 2040 to 2060. Now, as Steve pointed out, there's a lot of debate back and forth about whether we're all going to be in one in 5 years or we're not going to be in one for 50 years. And that's not all going to be solved here at this conference. Like I said, for our agency, our goal is to stay nimble for what comes. But I would ask you, if we don't address some of those equity issues of who has this technology and who doesn't, it will get blown up relatively quickly. Just look at the recent example on the hot lanes on 405 and the upset that was created when publicly purchased and infrastructure that was paid for by all taxpayers became much more expensive and affordable for some taxpayers. Well, those issues could rear themselves rather quickly when we get into the potential for, if you will, the ultimate Lexus lanes, where some people who can afford those cars are in a platoon and other people are in the other roadway, in worse congestion than they've ever experienced. These are things we should look at with our eyes wide open, going in, and not just hope it works itself out. Because as I said, in this region, I think we've all experienced, these equity issues rise up, frankly, more quickly than they do in others. And we would do wise to think through them, think through the answers, and cast this as an opportunity for all, and not just for some. So thank you for your time. I'm afraid I can't stay through too many of the sessions today. I've got staff here that is, and I look forward to hearing their download on how things go. But please do stay in touch. We look forward to partnering with many, if not all of you, in our challenges ahead. Thanks for having me.
We didn't plan this ahead of time, but if there are some questions that you would like to ask Peter Rogoff, we have time for a couple of questions.
Can you hear me now? There you go. So I guess there's a question right here at the front.
Peter, I'll throw you a fastball. I'll throw you a touchdown pass straight on the numbers. Don't you see a use for automated vehicles in some transit problems like paratransit? Or, for instance, demand response where you have someone who's all the way out in the boonies, like South Hidalgo, and we have to get them to a park and ride. Basically what I'm asking you, Peter, as a transit super guy, and the Pete Carroll of public transportation, is do you see a future where automated vehicles could be used by transit agencies?
Yeah, good idea.
This is a little better. Thanks for the question, Joe. I hope to be more proud of being Pete Carroll in transit. Notwithstanding last week's, I'll try to repeat the question, or at least I'll try to characterize it. I think what he was asking was, do I see an opportunity for automated vehicles specifically in certain transit challenges, i.e. paratransit, passengers in very distant parts of the transit region? I think the challenge with paratransit, so when you take a driver out of the vehicle, you're taking more than just the individual. You're doing something. You're taking out, in some cases, I think paratransit actually, oddly, Joe, is actually the opposite case, because paratransit drivers have the added challenge of seeing to the health and welfare of that rider in ways that even regular bus drivers do not. So when we put a paratransit van attendant on a vehicle, you need to make sure that all wheelchairs are being appropriately strapped in. You need to be sure that any medical equipment that the passenger has to bring with them, came with them, is attended to, that there's a contact person for a person of responsibility sometimes for that paratransit passenger. So I'm not sure, when I think about all the options of taking a driver out of the vehicle, that actually might be last on the list.
Oh, okay.
That's not to say that automated van vehicles can't be in the future. I think paratransit may not be the way to go.
Okay.
So you'll find on your table questions. We have time for one more question. One of these has been filled out already. The question is, what's the state of development for automation on light rail trains? How is Sound Transit planning for such automation?
Well, right now our look at automation really has more to do, like I said, in trying to be nimble to what comes on the vehicular connection. We did just order as you probably heard, because ridership is actually going beyond our initial expectations with just the opening of U-Link and Angle Lake. We have on order a new fleet of rail cars that will be needed in order to accommodate the expansion to Northgate, to Linwood, and to Bellevue. Those are not automated vehicles. You really need to have an entirely different system. The only one I know at the current time, and they're struggling with it, to deploy an entirely automated driverless. I mean, we have like driverless, if you will, connections on airport shuttles and such. Honolulu is looking to go to a driverless system. Honolulu is also currently struggling to eventually get their system built for a variety of reasons. We would have to do a much more thorough analysis on actually trying to convert to a driverless light rail network, which I do not see in our very near future.
Well, thank Peter Rogoff again for being here. He's going to have a lot of resources to deal with issues. Here on the east side and north and south of Seattle, we have some unique circumstances and some unique opportunities to work closely with you as you roll out East Link first and then SD3 later on. So thank Peter again.
Woo!
So our next speaker is Tom Walker, and actually we're going to be doing an interview. I'm going to be talking to Tom. He is the co-founder of the Madrona Venture Group. He's also served